The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff or management of Visionary Related Entertainment.
Aloha and welcome to Maui Nonprofit Notes. Each week on this show, you'll find us talking story with Maui's nonprofit executive directors and staff to find out how they're working to support those with needs within our community. Maui Nonprofit Notes is generously sponsored by Pacific Source. If you're building or remodeling a home, please stop by Pacific Source's Cabinet and Appliance Showroom located in the Waikapu Base Yard. I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, and your host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. During this hour, we share some of the experiences of our nonprofit agencies and just how they're changing lives, changing communities, and creating miracles of hope for those with needs. Today, we're going to start off the show talking to Dean Wong, who's the Executive Director of Imua Family Services. Hi, Dean. How you doing?
Hi, aloha. Glad to be here today.
Hey, it's it's so great. We were talking about the weather and how beautiful it was, and I'm looking out the window here in the penthouse of the KAOI studios, and we got some clouds coming in, and it's like, no, don't do that.
I know, but it's just we're so lucky, Maui no Ka'oi. We just live in this great beauty and splendor. And it was sunny this morning. It'll be sunny later. It'll be a beautiful sunset somewhere, and the clouds make for great sunsets, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the rain brings rainbows, so it's all good.
Speaking of that, the other day, the double rainbow. We used to have them all the time.
Yeah.
And then for the couple of years now, it's been like you were lucky to get a really good single rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
The other afternoon driving home, a double rainbow just popped up, both rainbows just as brilliant as can be. And
Yeah.
it was like, I got to pull over and take a picture, kind of thing. And I'm thinking, what am I, a tourist?
I know. Well, hey, when you know that we are overcome with beauty and splendor, and it's good that you never lose that, where it excites you that way, because we don't want to take advantage of where we live and the beauty that's around us all the time. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's refreshing. I don't know about you, but sometimes I go home at night and it's like, what a day this has been, And you see something like that, and you're revitalized. You're raring to go again.
Absolutely.
And you wake up the next morning and the blue sky and the sun's popping up, and you go, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Take it on.
I know. I mean, I'm glad that spring has sprung and that we are past those torrential rainy periods, but our island needs them. But I think a few of them took us by surprise, and
I think we had maybe one too many of them.
Yeah.
Or one too many days in a row maybe was the problem.
Exactly.
We can handle some rain, but when it gets to be week after week after week, that's enough. So let's talk about something exciting. You've got your big gala that's coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's actually, I think it's like 9 days from now or something on Saturday, April 8th. I can't believe April is here.
Uh-huh.
Just at the end of this week, it'll be April. And gosh, it's such a, I don't know where the first part of the year went to, but suddenly April is upon us. And, April is the reason we do our gala celebration, anniversary, fundraiser, all those good things that you want to call it, in April, is because April is when the National Week of the Young Child is. And so there's a national focus on early childhood education, health, and services throughout the nation. And being an early childhood organization, as Imua Family Services is, we focus our celebration in April. Also, April is Autism Awareness Month. Throughout the whole month of April. And so being an organization that has also had a large focus on children in their early development with autism spectrum disorder, it's always been important for us. So we felt like that was the right month to celebrate our anniversary each year. And this year in 2017, April just happens to be our 70th anniversary of Imua Family Services, which started back in 1947. So that's very exciting for us.
That's pretty exciting to think 70 years. And, I noticed when you came in, you had a notebook with a lot of papers that have turned yellow over the years. And you were telling me these are documents from the start of the organization.
Yeah, these, a lot of these documents, first of all, are written on parchment, and you can see they're crumbling and falling apart. and they are all yellowed, just to give a visual for our listeners out there. And they were hand typed on those things. I think they called them typewriters. You remember those?
And in 47, they went
yeah.
clank, clank.
And you can see that they used carbon paper behind them, because they probably kept everything in duplicate or triplicate. And you know, these, I love to look back on these documents, and I feel so honored to have them at my fingertips, because I feel like, you know, it's like looking back at the founders of the organization and seeing the things that they were doing, but the vision that they also had for the organization that they started. Back in 1947, Hawaii was still a territory,
right.
And the organization was called it was the Maui unit of the Society, Hawaii Society for Crippled Children. That's sort of how we began. And it was a group of volunteers and community members who first started providing services for children with polio.
Polio, that was big back then.
It was big, and it was harmful, and you know, I think we were dealing with a territory that still had the impact of how leprosy was handled fresh in their minds.
Right.
And I think there was a lot of fear around polio, and were we going to mistreat this disease in individuals in a way that had happened in the island's history. And so, you know, it's really interesting when I look through these documents. But these documents are very organized, you know, and the names of the people and the families are still names that we see very prevalent today here on Maui. You know, everything from Wong, like mine, to Watanabe, and, you know, Matsuda, and Sato. It's always so interesting to look back at these documents. But I love hearing and reading about the early start of the organization, some of the things that they organized. And I wanted to mention that after sort of polio started to resolve itself, then the focus in these documents quickly switched to cerebral palsy.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, our organization's mission today still remains the same. We're focused on early childhood development and empowering children to reach their full potential. Today, you know, we focus on a lot greater spectrum, unfortunately, of things that have an implication on a child's development, from premature birth to fetal alcohol syndrome to autism spectrum disorders or Down syndrome, and any number of other things. But I'll share this with you because I think you'll find this amazing. This document I look back to a lot. It was written in, where's the date? I think this one was 1950. So this was written in 1950. And it was the minutes from a board meeting. There was the board of trustees that they had here. And they had created some early goals for the organization. And they thought some of the things that could be good to help meet the immediate needs of children. And the first one was by bringing attention of the people of the territory, a better understanding of the extent of the problems of crippled children, and how limited the present resources are in meeting these problems. Now, today, what that boils down to is outreach, right? That is saying we need to let more people know about what the needs of this community is, and have more advocacy for our children, so that people in the community understand their needs and have a greater awareness. And I love that. And I love that it's still number one on our priority today, and that's why we're here on the radio talking, right?
Right.
So that's not something that goes away. We're constantly still providing education to our community and wanting them to include all children. Second point was providing training for some of the much needed personnel. For example, special training for physical therapists, occupational therapists, and speech therapist teachers of handicapped children. This is something our organization does on an ongoing basis now. And, you know, as today we are a staff of 55 professionals at Imua Family Services. And, you know, we have quite a large handful of physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, special instruction teachers, general instruction teachers, family trainers. And these are highly skilled professional groups that have a specialty training in pediatrics. And back in 1950, when this document was written, it was a vision That
Right.
if we could have these kind of specialty trainings, just think of the help we could provide to our children. So Maui County is very fortunate to have the skill set that is available through Imua Family Services for the Islands County. I love this point. In number 3, it was, if we could employ a speech therapist whose services may well be shared between the schools and the Division of Crippled Children proposed treatment center. So there was an idea of having a treatment center early on in the history of this organization. And they, at the time, also could not necessarily envision that they would need a full-time speech therapist. So they thought maybe there would be one that could be shared amongst the schools here. And of course now, fortunately, the Department of Education, the schools, they employ several speech pathologists, and Imua has, I think, almost 8. We're somewhere between 6 full-time and a couple part-time speech pathologists. And the exciting thing is we do have, what they call the proposed treatment center, but we do have our early childhood development center in Kahului. So I love this. I love looking back at these notes and seeing the vision and how it's come together.
Do you ever feel like you're watching this meeting in action?
Oh yeah,
As you read through it, can you put yourself in the room?
Well, it still feels like my board meetings today in many ways. I mean, we talk about the vision of Imua, and we talk about, well, what does Imua Family Services look like at our 100th anniversary? What is the direction we want to move in? What are the needs going to be for the community and for children in the future? And we want to make sure, what I would love to see is that there are no needs, of course.
Right.
All our
We
children
all
are
want to put
doing
ourselves
well.
out of business.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But if that's not the case, or if the extent of the numbers of children continue to grow who are being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, continue to grow at the pace that they're growing at, hopefully someone is starting to look at why this is happening. But are we going to be able to meet the needs in 5 years from now, and in 10 years from now, and in 20 years from now? So we still have the same meetings today that they were having back in 1950. We're bigger, we're stronger, we're bolder, we're more equipped, we have more knowledge, and we have better resources than existed in 1950. But our needs are stronger too. When I look at the family lists and the family lists and the client lists that attended events, back in 1947 and then 1950 and 1952, you could see that it started with a group of like 12 children, and then it was 24 children, and then it progressed on to there. And now we are seeing over 300 children monthly, and those 300 children each month are getting literally sometimes between 15 and 20 hours of development services per week. So, they're not just seeing a speech pathologist one time. They're seeing a speech pathologist 2-3 times a week, sometimes once a week or 3 times a month. They're seeing a physical therapist once a week. They're seeing an occupational therapist once or twice a week. They're seeing their social worker or their care coordinator several times a week and constantly on the phone with them. So, it's a lot of services. I think we
Right.
figured it out that most children in our organization, of say 300 plus children that are getting ongoing services, are getting more than 1,100 hours of services per year.
Oh.
So that's a lot. And when you look back at these, these early documents, it's we've certainly have come a long way.
You have.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about the amount of time that's spent with the children, what age group are we talking about?
So our programs run within there's the national age for early childhood development is birth through age 8.
Okay.
We at Imua focus primarily, I would say 90% of our services are birth through age 6.
Okay.
And we have what we call, there's some exceptions where we really run up through age 8. The reason we focus so much on those early age years is because early intervention is the most critical to any child's development. And early intervention refers to children before they reach the age of 5, because 90% of a child's brain development happens before the age of 5. So the more work we can do with a family and a child, and I say family and child because it means everyone's involved in the child's growth, the farther ahead that child will get in those early years. After the age of 8, the amount of change that can happen, and when I say that, I also am one of those people that doesn't believe that nothing is impossible, but the amount of change that can happen for a child becomes less and less likely to be long-term. over the years. So that is why early intervention is so critical and so important.
Interesting. So you're talking the child and the family involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the questions that always comes up, you're talking about 1,100 hours spent. Who pays for this?
Good question. Well, let's get back to the gala. No. So we have different sources of funding for. It's very interesting, but it sort of spreads itself out for children at different ages.
Okay.
So, for instance, we have a contract with the Department of Health to provide early intervention services for children for birth to age 3. So up until age 3, all of the services we provide for families is completely free of charge to families. And EMUA Family Services is reimbursed in part by the Department of Health Early Intervention Services. And I say in part because there are many things that are not reimbursable. In other words, they don't reimburse us for the time that our therapists have to write notes.
Oh, okay.
And with children, you have to write a lot of notes for their medical records. We don't get reimbursed for group activities, parent-toddler groups that we run for our families, and we believe that groups and social interaction with children is very important. We don't get reimbursed for support groups for the parents and the families with Down syndrome, families with autism services. So there's a lot of those, we call those gap services, that we make up the difference for. Then for children after the age of 3, some children will qualify for services through the Department of Education if they are deemed critical and above a certain evaluations point, right? Then many children who still require services don't qualify for DOE services, but they've now aged out of the Department of Health Services. We call these children GAP children. They're children who clearly have a defined developmental delay, but for whatever reason didn't qualify for special education services, which is not necessarily bad, but they didn't qualify. So we have a program called our Early Childhood Development Program, which helps children from age 3 through age 6, sometimes 8, and we will provide services to those children who require either speech or occupational therapy or physical therapy. And then those services, we meet those needs in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's a sliding scale. Sometimes we provide a scholarship for the child to receive the services at no charge to the families. And some families are qualified to be able to pay for some services. Either way, we will make sure that those children get the services they need.
Right.
And so all of these gaps that I've just mentioned, those are the areas where our fundraising fills in the difference.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break right there, and we'll be right back with Dean Wong of EMUA Family Services.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we are back. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes, the weekly radio show where we talk story with our executive directors and staff to find out what's happening in their world. And the world of EMUA Family Services is
it's a big world.
Is ever expanding.
It's a big world.
I'm thinking, as you're talking about the services you provide today and the staff that you have and that you need to provide the services to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And I think back 70 years ago to 12 families, 24 families, whatever the number was in those couple of years. But everything builds on something.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't open and serve. Well, how many would you have in that age group? Say the DOE supports the ages 1 to 3.
The DOH, the Department of Health.
I'm sorry, yeah.
So that is probably 275 families a month getting services that from birth to age 3. and somewhere around 1,500 to 1,700 a year.
Wow.
In that group. Yeah, and a lot of it, sometimes it is children who are born premature. That's a very common one as an example. And, a premature birth, I was born a month premature, doesn't always mean that there will be some delays, but sometimes it does, or oftentimes it does. But it does mean that those children can get caught up with services, right?
And that's where you come in. I mean, that's the whole purpose of what you're doing with those children.
Exactly.
Is trying to get them caught up so that by the time they're going into preschool,
yeah, definitely.
They're right there
they're
with the
ready
rest
to
of
go.
them.
And speech delays are often, a huge area of concern, and they're often as well something that with the right intervention services can be totally corrected and help get children on track and on pace as well. So there are things that there are many, many things that we do with children and their development that simply help them progress. Some children, everyone is different. Some children, a lot of parents you'll hear say, oh, my child barely crawled. They went right from, not being able to crawl to trying to walk. And without sort of realizing that actually crawling is a huge part of a child's brain development. And so we want to encourage all the development stages to happen in a child's growth and development. And then there are some concerns parents have that, the Department of Education Services or Department of Health Services don't really focus on, for instance, stuttering. Children who develop a stuttering problem, where it becomes very hard for them to communicate. Stuttering isn't something that's really covered by their services. And so, but it is something that we will help families and focus on with children because it can impede a child's self-esteem, their development, their willingness to want to talk and communicate with their peers. It can have a lot of impact.
Right.
Yeah.
And when would that show up? I mean, does that?
Sometimes it doesn't start. When children are first learning to speak, we make a lot of concessions for them because they're just learning.
Right.
They don't get every letter right and every sound, and nor should they. There are certain letters and sounds that don't come till later. And but when parents start to notice that the child actually starts to refuse to speak, and then when they do try and speak, they get more frustrated, or it's a lot of anxiety for them, and it starts to have a regression because they're fearful of not being able to get the words out or not being able to start it, or there's a sentence that at one time they used to be able to say quite well, even if it was just pick me up or something like that, and suddenly that becomes really difficult for them to say. So children go back and forth, as they're developing and growing, and sometimes it's typical, and sometimes it's something that the family could use a little bit of help with. And in all instances, it's okay to call us and find out.
Right. When in doubt, call.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. And if it's a temporary situation, make it even shorter.
Yeah, and that's okay. And I think it's great for parents to hear, that's perfectly typical, don't worry, or here's some things you could do. I often tell a story about my own son when he first started talking that, he was quite chatty, and we were really pleased with his word development and how well he was talking. And then he went through a period where it got to be a lot less. And I had said to one of our speech therapists, I thought, wow, he was talking and saying all these words, and now he's sort of not talking as much, and he's not saying as much. And she said, well, Dean, she goes, you guys as parents have become so intuitive to your child's needs that you often give him what he needs before he asks for it. And it's true, anything to prevent that sort of outburst, in a child, you'll sort of he's going to be thirsty any minute. So you provide the sippy cup, or you give them this, and you have a snack thing available to them. And here's the deal. If children don't need to speak, guess what? They won't. And if all their toys are on the floor and they don't have to reach for anything, then they won't. And so sometimes it's just a simple thing like keeping the sippy cups and the snacks and things out of reach. And so the child has to ask for them before they get them. And once they learn that they have to use language to communicate, then they start adapting it into their behavior, and putting their favorite toys up on a shelf instead of on the floor where it's easily accessible. Then they'll learn to ask for those things. And it was true. We had sort of taken out all of the need for our child to speak because we were trying to be such good, parents and be there before the call to action came. So once we realized we were doing that, we did that. We started putting things out of reach. We stopped, picking him up until he asked for it, all those sorts of things.
You spoiled him.
Yeah.
Kind of. I
Pretty
mean,
easy to do.
Yeah. You think you're being a good parent by
Yeah.
having everything ready for him.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting thought. Now, I was recently talking to a 2-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and it was an interesting conversation.
Was it a full-grown 2-year-old, or is that
Yeah,
a 2-year-old?
yeah, right. And I'm really listening to try to get what all the words are, because some of them are not clear,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, he's 2, and I was quite amazed that he was saying as much as he was. But basically, the problem I was running into was he was connecting words in a sentence like one long word.
Right.
Like one of the things I can remember he was saying, "Come visit us soon."
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like, if I don't get it out quick, it's not going to happen or
Right,
something.
right.
But a 2-year-old saying, "Come visit us soon." What the heck? And I'm thinking, I wonder if he always talks like that,
Right.
in a hurry.
Right.
And he's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff like that. But it's just, and he's coached by Mom,
Right.
when he, tell her, come visit us, and he put soon on in his own time there.
Sure.
But it was just kind of fun to watch how this is happening and how he's maturing
Exactly.
at 2. And I'm
2,
going,
yeah.
wow. And yet, there's times, and she and I were comparing notes about, like, when she was growing up. I said, there were times when you said things that you're thinking, where did you hear that? Or how did you know to put that in the conversation that we're having? And it's like there's another world behind them somewhere.
Absorbing everything.
It's just
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Are you sure this is not Dad?
Yeah.
And then every once in a while you get that feeling like he knows something that we haven't talked about.
Right.
Is that unrealistic?
Oh,
I
no.
mean,
They're picking up, they're sponges, right, at those ages. And they're picking up everything around them on the radio, on the TV. Anything that you have blasting information around you is being absorbed into your child's psychic. And it will come out in some way, phrase or another.
and if it happens to be appropriate to the conversation, that's more luck than sense.
Yeah, it's true. It is true, yeah. So, yeah, it's... they're always paying attention. They're picking up everything that's good from you. They're also picking up everything that might not be so good, of the habits we have that we don't necessarily want to pass on to our children. And, I remember, there's one of the biggest fears parents have is when you take your children to a playground and they suddenly get exposed to something that you weren't ready for them, to be exposed to. And I remember that the children who would do that the most for my son were children that had an older brother or sister. Because then those children just by nature are being already exposed to stuff very early,
Right.
And so then, there you'd have your child in the playground playing with another couple of 2 or 3-year-olds, and suddenly they'd come back and be saying, "I want to watch the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on TV," and you'd be like, "What?" No, we're still in Mickey Mouse stage, So that's how they learn stuff, and children would prefer to learn from other children than adults, and that is a good example of why we at Imua began our inclusion preschool. Because children who are typically behaving are the best teachers to children who have some sort of a developmental concern or disability. And when you can combine them in a singular classroom and they learn together, then they will model the behaviors of the typically progressive developing children. And it's a win-win for everybody.
And can you see the difference on almost a weekly basis?
Yeah, you can see children who typically would regress or not be social because they were concerned about something that they were concerned about for themselves, becoming more social, trying harder, wanting to impress their friends in the classroom. And you can see other children who are typical, showing and illustrating more compassion, more tolerance, more teaching, more leadership, by wanting to help children along so that they can do things together.
That's a win-win.
It is. Absolutely, it is.
Yeah, that's great. So in the school, how many children would be in a class?
We only have one classroom.
Okay.
And so it's a preschool. So it's age 3, 4, and 5 until the child is ready to go to kindergarten. And our classroom size is 20. And in a classroom size of 20, that the way we try and build it is that 16 children are typically developing children, and 4 of the children are children that have an identified development issue or concern. So that way you definitely want the typical number to offset the balance,
Right.
So that it's that typical behavior that is picked up and learned.
Interesting. And that's the same school hours as everybody else?
Yeah, full time. So each year you have a group that's graduating out and going to kindergarten and a new group coming in. And
Right.
this is only our second full year with our preschool since we moved into our new development center. And so, it's been a great learning experience for us, but it's something we've just really loved having part of our programming.
You see it working.
It is. And in the future, we see more of them. We see more IMUA inclusion preschools around the islands.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Talking about all that strategic planning stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's tremendous because that's. I agree with that concept of learning from other children.
Yeah.
Because as you look around your neighborhood or even in your family setting, it's what they get together and do.
Sure.
You can be around parents all the time. Who cares? That at that age.
Well, and we are an organization that really believes that everyone in our community is to be included. And so in our school setting, and I don't think this is uncommon, but it's about including our cultures of family cultures together. People come from different family situations and family setups. They come from different cultural, ethnic backgrounds, and they come from different abilities. And all of that needs to be taught to be inclusive together and respected together and learned together and loved together. And then that's where our future will be.
Right. Wow. Yeah. You mentioned earlier a staff of something like 55 professionals. And I noticed on your website you were talking about most of them with master's degrees in their selected studies what's that called?
Field.
There you go. Just rounding up, that's a terrible way to say it, but rounding up that many people
right.
Who can do this work is quite a challenge to start with.
It's huge. And even now we're short-staffed. So we are always looking for additional speech-language pathologists. We currently have some openings for board-certified behavioral analysts, BCBAs. We have job openings for registered behavioral technicians. We have a job opening for family trainer and general educators. It's just, it is our biggest task at IMUA Family Services is finding qualified help. And of course, sometimes you get an application and a resume for someone who's got all the right qualifications on paper, and then you interview them and it's junk, So no offense out there, but sometimes they're just not the right fit for us or our community,
Right.
And so you put that on top of the fact that we need very certain credentials. We want people that have a pediatric background and some experience. So we recruit far and wide. We recruit from all over the world and all over the United States. We also run into the complication that our universities here don't put out these particular fields of expertise. So that means if we were looking for new graduates and interns and things of that nature, we're still recruiting them from universities across the mainland. So it's a huge it's a huge ongoing task for our organization and for other organizations that do other kinds of similar work.
Right. So then does that kind of put you in that same category where people come and it's an adventure to come to Hawaii and do this work, and 3 years later they're ready to head back home or wherever?
Yes. Or something happens with the family back home, and so they want to be close to their family.
Right.
Yeah, that's and I don't think that's uncommon in any profession here
Correct.
in Hawaii.
Right.
And that's just something that we have to deal with. So it's a turnover that we're constantly trying to stay ahead of the curve on. So I have a human resources staff person, and that's primarily what she does all the time is constant recruiting.
Yeah. Well, you at some point you just have to accept the fact that that's how it is in Hawaii. And if you can get somebody good and have them for 2 years, you're thankful for those 2 years.
Yeah. But, we've come to terms with knowing that that's part of our work, but we've never said that it's acceptable for us. In other words, I think there were many points where the board thought of our organization, wow, we have 20 staff. We'll never get any bigger than this, and then we were 30 staff. And then, well, I think we've probably absorbed all the staff we can. Now we're 50 staff, and we still need more staff, right? We could be 60 before the year is over,
wow.
and that would be perfect for us right now, But as the needs grow and as we continue to do more, then we'll need more trained staff. We're also looking for a clinical psychologist with a pediatric background, just putting that out there. And, so, yeah, there's a lot more for us to do. There's a lot more for us to grow. And also, it's about the world around us is changing too, right? People need to have very specified qualifications to do specific jobs. I would bet if we looked back at 1950, in these things that, a lot of things were made do with volunteers.
Right.
But today it requires very specific qualifications to do these jobs.
Now, I hear from some people, they say, well, families move here, either the husband or wife is transferred here
Mm-hmm.
or comes here for a different job, and the partner or spouse is kind of, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, if anything, and then they start looking around, and sometimes that's your best prospect.
Mm-hmm.
They have exactly the skills you're looking for.
Yeah.
They've never heard of you because
Right.
they're not here. And so I think, just putting the word out there, you would love to have someone who lives here and plans on being here who maybe is ready to come back to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And, we keep our job postings on our website all the time, so people can go look up our website at emuafamilyservices.org. We find that to be one of our best recruiting tools because it's people who are interested in children in early childhood development. Typically, they're looking through our website, they're looking at our programs, and then they see that we have potentials and job openings and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the unspoken or hidden talent pool that's out there, that unless they see something or somebody says something to them,
they don't know.
Yeah, they don't know, and they're just waiting for an opportunity to jump back into their field.
Yeah.
We got to take another short break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we are back. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes, your weekly radio show where we talk story with our nonprofit executive directors and find out what's happening, as I said earlier, in their world, which encompasses our world. And, I think the thing that I find most fascinating still, in the 8 years that we've been doing this radio show, variations of basically finding out what our different organizations do. Because in many cases we know maybe the big program that they do, but like I've learned from even my own agency, people say, what do you do? Yeah. And then you'll say something about housing people with chronically physically challenged or mentally ill types of folks, and they go, oh yeah, the apartments. And that's part of it. Then you start, on to the other things, and you find they have no idea what you do, and we can't blame them.
No, well, also we live in a society where people only want to hear the elevator speech.
That's true. That's
these
true.
days, if 144 characters, right, which is a tweet, and as we know, tweets can say a lot these days, right?
Right. Who was it said that's a chirp? No, it's not a chirp. It's a tweet.
Yes. And so, people want to hear the one-liner, about organizations. And so we kind of all refined our elevator speeches, but it certainly doesn't encompass the breadth,
Right.
the depth, and the scale of what we do. And, I was recently at a national training for nonprofit organizations and executive directors, and I was hearing on a national scale the number of employees of nonprofit organizations on a national scale, the number of dollars that are generated both in labor costs and also what is saved by the government in nonprofit organizations doing the scale of work that they do, because of how far a nonprofit organization can take a dollar
Right.
versus what it would take if it was a government-based organization to do the same work. And we're meeting a greater need at 10 times the capacity, and it's easy for people to forget that, and it's easy, so anyway, I forget where I was going with that, but it's just, we do a lot.
Right.
And it's not always on the front page. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And while sometimes you hear, well, doesn't so-and-so do that? How come you're both doing it?
Yeah.
And the bottom line is, if you really look into the program, we're not both doing it. We're
Right.
doing different parts of it,
Right.
creating a whole program that helps the community.
Right. And sadly, in some cases, one organization can't do it all.
Right.
It's why we need several healthcare companies, and it's why we need several, we have a lot of concerns.
There's a lot of issues out there. There's a lot of people needing help.
Yeah.
And when it comes right down to it, I mean, the bottom line for traditionally is money.
Mm-hmm.
And if a family can't afford the service, their children, they're sitting there saying, well, we can't afford to do it. We can't afford to do it. And that's where it really comes in, that we have to talk about what we do and how we can do it without them having to spend the money.
Right.
The money's there. You've already paid your taxes, or
Right.
you've already paid this or that. You've already bought supplies or services from some company that has a foundation that gives grants.
Right.
And that's what we're going after, is those
Right.
kinds of things and activities. We have people who leave estates.
Right.
In their estate planning, they leave funds for, like, the Hawaii Community Foundation
Right.
programs. And so the money is out there.
Yeah.
And if we find a need, and I think you probably would agree with me, if you found a new need,
Mm-hmm.
and you probably have a list of needs that you'd like to be filling,
Right.
that you just can't right now,
Right.
either because of funding or people or a location to do it.
Right.
If you had that money handed to you,
Mm-hmm.
you'd be out there in a heartbeat providing that service.
Right. It's capacity building, right? It's
Right.
building our organization's capacity, which is sort of a nice circle round to the fact why we have our anniversarial celebration, and it's a fundraising gala coming up next week on April 8th. And because through the monies that we raise at that particular gala, we are able to raise unrestricted funding for our programs, which really allows us the opportunity for great growth and expansion. And I think we've been able to come back each year at that event and share with our supporters just how much progress we've made in the previous year as a result of their support. And that has always been, I think, the most exciting thing to communicate at those events. We're sort of not coming back to them year after year to saying, oh, we need the same amount of money for the same need. We're sort of able to come back and say, because of your support, you helped us grow this, and
Right.
you helped us reach this need in this community and do this. And I think that's really important.
Right. And the reason, for those of you who are listening, the reason we haven't talked a whole lot about this gala is because it's sold out.
I know, it's a good place to be at. 4 weeks before the event, we were sold out. And
And when I said that to somebody, they said, this is Maui. Nothing sells out before the night before.
I know. So we didn't want to spend time saying, "Oh, this is how wonderful it's going to be," and say, "Then you can't come." But it's a great problem to have, right?
Right.
And we increased the number and capacity this year above what we have done any year in the past. It's definitely our biggest event. Also, I think the 70th anniversary has helped a little bit.
Right. It deserves to be the big event.
Yeah, it deserves to be a big event and pay recognition to some great supporters of our organization. And and we went full tilt just to make sure that we were going to have a great event. But we have many other events coming up that people can participate in as
Right.
well, because we have It will be back next month to talk about Padalimua,
Right.
which is just getting going now, and registration is open for that. And yeah, so there will be other opportunities. But yeah, exactly. We don't want to talk about something and say you can't come.
I know. It's just like I don't know how many people I said, I'm going to have Dean on and we're going to talk about his programs. And they said, well, what about his fundraiser? I said, we can't talk about it because it's sold out. And they go, oh, what a nice problem to have,
It is.
I mean, that's everybody's dream,
Yeah.
is to have a sold-out event ahead of schedule. Now, there is an after party.
There is. So our event this year is called the 70th Platinum Jubilee, being our 70th year. And so our after party is the Platinum After Party. And it features, and everyone knows this great crew, the DJs from Next Level Entertainment Hawaii, DJ Joe Cortez and his crew of DJs. And they'll be there bringing the jams on from 11 o'clock at night till 2 in the morning. And we have a whole separate ballroom at the Hyatt Regency Maui that is our after party. And so people go from the gala to the after party, and then we have separate tickets that are on sale just for that after party. So people that want to come in and just dance the night away with us can do that. It's $30 if you buy your tickets in advance, and they're $40 if you come that night and buy them at the door. So I would highly recommend getting them in advance because, $40, it's another drink or two.
Is it really?
Apparently.
30 to 40? I don't know about that. Anyway, but it's an opportunity to get dressed up and go out and have a great time.
Have a great time. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a lot of that after party is a lot of fun, and people are really go with the intention of just really wanting to dance and have a solid good time, and the DJs are incredible, the music's fantastic, and so it's just a great night for sure.
Cool. And that's, you said the Hyatt Regency?
Hyatt Regency Maui, yeah.
And we're talking about Saturday, April 8th?
Saturday, April the 8th, starting at 11 p.m.
Right.
at night till 2 in the morning. And you can go to our website for details at imuafamilyservices.org, or you can look up the Platinum After Party on Eventbrite, which is where the site will take you to buy tickets.
Tickets. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. I just, I keep thinking about your program, and I keep thinking about the families with children who may have some needs that maybe they haven't even recognized yet, and how we can tune them into recognizing them, or if you have friends who have children who perhaps, you're seeing something, and how you gently, bring it into the discussion.
One of the things that we have that's helpful for families is we have some things that are called developmental checklists. And they sort of they give you just a quick list of milestones that a child would typically reach at any given month. So it will show you by 3 months, by 6 months, by 9 months, by the first year, by 16 months, by 18 months. And you can call our office and request that, and we'll get them to you. And you can share them with friends and families. And I used it with my son just to see how on cue they were, and they're remarkably accurate. But these checklists are really helpful for people have, concerns. Typically, there's one parent who kind of has a suspicion when something starts to happen. And if you're paying close attention to your children, you should just sort of feel a natural progression of everything getting a little bit more of this, a little more movement, a little more talking, a little more sound, a little more starts to happen, a little more independence keeps happening. And when something starts to lag or stops or starts to regress or something, that's sort of those times when your little indicator light bulbs should start to go off. And like I said, and then that's always when it's just good to call and find out,
Right. Doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt.
And it could make a big difference.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. The second half of the show is going to be Dean interviewing me.
Yeah.
And I don't know
Turning the
what happened to
tables.
the second half of the show, but it seems like every time I plan to talk about Lokahi Pacific, I get so wrapped up in what we're talking about in the first half of the show that it's like, oh no, here we did it again.
I know. Well, let's talk. So how are you doing, Susie? Let's turn these tables on you.
Okay, real quick, we got
Yeah.
what? 4 minutes? Yeah,
Yeah.
something like
Well,
that. that's wrap up time.
Right. Tell me what the big
Well, the big thing
going on
right
is.
now, of course, is our project in Mokohau, the
Yes.
16 affordable houses. We've poured the slabs for the first 4 houses. Framing is starting to happen here within
awesome.
the next week. It's really getting excited. I mean, we've got the electric poles are in, the sidewalks, streets, everything, all that kind of stuff is in. And it's like...
And these houses are already occupied, right?
We have buyers.
You have buyers for all of them.
They are in escrow, but we also have a wait list.
Oh, you do? Okay.
And we continue taking applications because they won't be closing on these houses until probably the first 4, maybe in October.
Okay.
We're looking at kind of October, November, and December.
Okay.
For
so
them
in
being
case someone
completed.
falls out of the picture or...
Right.
Yeah.
Something happens, they decide they don't want to buy, or they something happens, they don't have the income that they had.
Right.
And so we'll continue working with people to...
Was there a priority group that you're focusing on for filling these residences?
Basically, we're looking at the folks who qualify are in the 81 to 120% of HUD income bracket, which means the family income is somewhere around $65,000 to $95,000. And most of our people are in the 65 to maybe 80. And just a great bunch of people. I mean, we've got young couples, we've got families, we've got some more senior type people, all ethnicities.
Right.
I mean, you name it. It's just going to be a great neighborhood.
Good.
And the homes, I'm so thrilled because the homes are designed by Hans Rieke.
Oh, nice.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't get a better name on a home design than Hans Rieke.
Right.
And people paid big bucks for that.
That's exciting.
But these houses went for $380,000.
Wow.
They're 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-story with an enclosed garage.
So you can see the end of this project in sight.
I can.
Which makes me want to ask you, then what?
Then what? I've also already got people showing me property that I should be looking at for the next project.
Good.
And as looking at the train of things, we finished one 5 years ago.
Right.
And this one will be finished here coming up at the end of this year, basically. And I'm looking at, okay, we had maybe a year in between there, so we're actually going to be finishing this project within 4 years of finding a piece of property.
Wow.
Which is an incredible
That's
feat,
really
everybody
amazing.
tells me.
Yes, it is.
I don't know. I just work at my pace and
Right.
I just keep going. But I am so thrilled with how this is going on, and I can't wait to see when the framing goes up and then the siding goes on
Yeah.
and then they start doing the interiors. And the big moment, of course, is when you hand the keys to the owner before Christmas.
Yeah. That's exciting.
That's my whole goal, is
Yeah.
to get these out there so that people can be moving in leading up to Christmas, because that's what we did back 5 years ago. And it's just so exciting to see families, decorating for the first time in their home.
In their home.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And at 380,
Anybody
that's
knows
just
Maui
unheard of.
knows that housing is always a concern. It's never easy. It's complicated, and it's expensive. So this is a major undertaking.
Right.
Yeah.
And my whole goal when we started this was that it would not hit the $400,000 price. I just could not see that. That's to me, that's unacceptable.
Right.
So we've done everything we can to bring forth a quality product and one that everybody can be proud of and stay under that price.
That's great.
So that's our main thing. And then, of
Thank
course,
you.
we've got the housing for the other folks, rental apartments. We've got our incubator program up at the Pono Center with the commercial kitchen and the incubator offices. So anything you want to know more about us, check our website, lokahipacific.org, and or give us a call, and we'll talk about it. And see what we can do to help you. Hey, thanks, Dean. You did that pretty well.
Oh, thank you.
You got us in there. Maui Nonprofit Notes is sponsored as a community service by Pacific Source, the builder's choice. Give Paul and his staff a call at 986-0380 or stop by their showroom in the Waikapu Base Yard on East Oahe Way to see how they can help you with your project. Today we talked with Dean Wong of Amua Family Services and, of course, myself, Susie Tiemann at Lokahi Pacific. We want to thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to join us again next week, same time, same place, when we'll talk to 2 other member agencies. I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, and your host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week, everyone.